In this video, I want to demonstrate how you can become productive in the Kumu environment in 10 minutes or less. So once you log in and end up at your dashboard, click on New Project, and I'm going to call it the First Kumu. You can call it your First Kumu or whatever. Productive in 10 minutes or less. Create the project. Here I am in Kumu. Here's an intro video that you can watch if you want. Watching it once is probably a good idea. So now that I'm here, the first thing I need to do is create an element. Click here, and I'll call it Tom, and hit enter. It puts an element on the canvas, which I can select and move around. I can then create another element, call it Jerry, and I can leave it where it is or move it around. Now notice that they're floating, and then I can tell it that I want a connection. And since Jerry is already selected, I tell it the element that I want to connect to, and Tom, and it finds it and connects. And I have now created a relationship between Tom and Jerry. If I click this, the connection, notice it says connection between Tom and Jerry. The default for a connection is the name of the two elements that it's connected to. So there, the first relationship map in 1 minute and 45 seconds, which is significantly less than 10 minutes. But let's continue on a bit. Once you create the first element, creating additional elements is far easier if you simply hold down the Alt key and then point to a particular element and drag off of it. This is new element, and from there I can hold down the Alt key and say another. So I can continue to do this. I can also hold down the Alt key and make connections from one to the other, which makes it very fluid and flexible. When you create these, you can click on them and move them around based upon the links. Now, notice that this is all floating, and it sort of decides how to arrange things in different places. You can go ahead and use this tool down here, and you can pin that in place so that now it will stay where you put it and it won't move at all. And I can actually hold down the Shift key and select all of these and pin them all. So they're now all pinned. And now that they're all pinned, I also have the option of being able to modify the curve that is connecting to them. All right. Now, I said that the label, you can edit the label over here. Tom is a cat. Can't spell cat, but Tom is a cat. And therefore it changes. You can also define your labels to be on multiple lines. If you simply put in 2 spaces as opposed to 1, any place you took 2 spaces, it ends up being a line break when it displays the label. For the connections, I said the default label for a connection is the name of the 2 elements that it's connected to. You can edit that and say chases, and so anytime you change it from the default, it actually displays that label on the connection. You can also select it, select it and delete it, and it will go back to its default. In terms of connecting or adding additional elements, by default they're floating and undirected. You can take a connection and you can define whether it's undirected, directed, If it's directed, you can reverse it, or you can say it has two arrows in it. You can also come over here and say that when I create new elements, I want them to be fixed rather than floating, and I want new connections to be directed. And what happens is then when I create new elements, it goes ahead and adds the arrow, even more stuff. And if I then don't want the arrow to go in this direction, I can simply reverse it. So you continue to add items to the environment as you need to. So that's pretty much what it takes to be productive in the environment. As I said, you can zoom in, zoom out, and you can zoom to fit. And I said before that each element or each entity in your model has a profile page. This is the profile page for the map itself. The default name for the map is map. Notice up here it says the First Kumu, which is the name of my project, # map, which is the name of the map. And I can actually say this is main map. Notice that the URL up here changes again. So if you simply go to this URL, it takes you to the default entry point in the model, which is the initial map. Or if you happen to actually go from here back to here, it says main map. For every element that you select, notice the URL says the map name and the element name on that particular map. And this is the profile page for the map, and you can add a description for this. This is what this map is about, mostly junk. And the formatting here is all done in a format convention called Markdown, and here is the description of the Markdown formatting conventions, which is probably one of the simplest set of formatting conventions you'll run across. So just peruse through it. There's 3 or 4 of them that will take care of 90% of the formats that you want to do. So when you're done, or you can simply change it. I mean, change it as often as you want to. When you select an element, it also has a profile page. Tom is not my cat. So you can provide a description of every element that is in the relationship map. You can also add descriptions for, this is the relation between Jerry and Tom. So in other words, it makes it very easy to document the model that you're developing, because when you provide it to other people, you invest a lot of time in developing the relationships that are part of your model, and you have an understanding about what it says that's not actually reflected in the labels. So if you provide it to somebody else, what they end up seeing is a wiring diagram and the labels, and they don't have any of the thoughts that you had when you put the model together. So it's appropriate, or it's useful to other people if you actually provide sort of the rationale behind the relationships that you developed in the model. It provides a basis for other people to understand what it was that you were thinking when you developed this, as opposed to having you send it to them and they send back a message saying, and what were you thinking when you developed this? Which often happens. I mean, it happens all the time in terms of we just lose sight of what is not conveyed in the map that we create, because mentally we embody it with so much more than we actually have put down explicitly in the map itself. So that's the beginning of how you become productive with Kumu in, what I say, 1 minute and 45 seconds, and the rest of it I've just rambled on and on. In the next video, we'll talk a little bit about types and tags and why you want to use them. And maybe we'll actually create something a little bit more meaningful than this mess. So, see you in the next video. Bye.